Good morning to everyone. How are you? You really feeling great today? Well, we have a beautiful message today from the Old Testament, from the book of Jeremiah. And if you notice, Jeremiah's name is not spelled correctly. It doesn't have an I, but it's all right, right? Because God has a sense of humor. Amen? Well, let me just read a few things to you about Jeremiah, and then we'll get straight into the sermon. My joy is gone. Grief is upon me. My heart is sick. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we're not saved. For the hurt of my poor people I am hurt. I mourn, and dismay has taken hold of me. Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Anyone paying attention to the state of our world affairs would from time to time ask the question, where is God? When someone asks, did you hear about that horrible story in the morning news? The response is usually, which one? Turn on the television or pick up the newspaper and it's pretty much the same, isn't it? You hear there is an accident, a murder, everywhere there's a tragedy, floods and tornadoes, massacres and bombings, deaths and notices of infants and adults in the obituaries. News organizations and newspapers, show after show, page after page, laments the news of blood and tears. And we do not need the newspaper or the television to tell us about broken hearts. You see, when we gather for worship, we put on our best selves, our best face, but we bring a variety of heartaches. The daily toll of a parent with Alzheimer's, a sick child, the pain of a broken marriage, the loss of a job, the challenge of a terminal illness, the anguish of unrequited love, one-sided love, the loneliness that follows the loss of a loved one. And some days, my friends, your diary may just read like the book of Job. Some days it seems as if everyone is dealing with a crisis. 2,600 years ago, Jeremiah the prophet was in the middle of a crisis surrounded by broken-hearted people. The prophet wrote in chapter 9, verses 19 to 21, a few of his devotional grief-filled thoughts. The song of sobbing is heard from Zion. We are devastated. He told the women of Jerusalem, teach your daughters to mourn and teach each other to grieve. Death has climbed through our windows. Jeremiah has good reasons to despair. Jeremiah is in the twilight of her history. The nation is breathing its last. Babylon has demolished most of the city and torn down the temple. The armies of Nebuchadnezzar have stolen the best stuff and the best people. And Jeremiah cries out, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then have my people not been restored to health? Is only my head were a spring of water, and my eyes a fountain of tears? I would weep day and night for the wounds of my people. Jeremiah cries out, where are you? Now, all saints, we know that it feels not to understand why, we know how it feels to not understand why there is so much suffering. One of the major words that all of us say when crisis strikes us down, when trouble comes to our door, we always ask the question, why? When tragedies strike, we want an explanation for why God is not doing what we want God to do. At times we want to blame God, and at times we want to defend God. God does not keep us from all harm, and yet we want to pretend that divine protection still makes sense. The truth is that accidents take no detours around good people. Sorrow comes as part of the broken, the random rhythm of the world. When I was a chaplain up in Rochester, New York, I remember getting a phone call to come to the hospital. Her husband had died. When I got there, the widow was crying in an inconsolable grief. And after a few minutes, I asked if I could pray with her. I began the kind of prayer that clergy pray in the emergency room when someone has died. Listen for a moment. God, thank you for being with us during this difficult time. She surprised me by responding, God, I feel so alone. I thought maybe my prayers was too quiet or too slow, or I was saying something that was wrong or the wrong thing. And so I tried to pick up the pace. I prayed again. God, thank you for the hope you give. And she responded, God, I don't feel any hope. I prayed, God, thank you that in some ways this good man will always be with us. And she screamed out in a really loud, angry voice, God, I cannot believe that you took him. My prayers was not an angry enough. My prayers was not going to do it. It was not getting there, and she knew it. She had to take over. I prayed, God, thank you that you will get us through these difficult days. And she yelled, God, I am not ready to go right now. Our prayers went on and on for several minutes. I would offer a trite remark, and she would speak the truth. She was right, my friends. My prayer was the prayer of a religious person trying to sound religious. Hers was the prayer of a being frank and honest and open and authentic, not holding back anything back from God. Her prayers was that of a person whose heart was broken. And so like Jeremiah, she had God by the lapels in both hands and was crying in God's face, I don't think that you're listening. When your child gets hurt, you try to comfort that child, don't you? Amen? Yeah? You say, it's going to be all right. You don't mean that the child's pain is unimportant because you know that life is hard. You do not mean that everything is going to be all right at that moment or that everything will work out in this particular circumstance. What you mean is that finally, ultimately, in the biggest picture, eternity is structured in such a way that things will be all right. It is because we believe that God would love us forever. We do not sing, is there a balm in Gilead? We sing, there is a balm in Gilead. A balm that makes the wounded whole. A balm that heals the sick soul. Jeremiah pretty much complements Jesus' parable of the dishonest manager. Because here, in all of the readings, God is calling for us to be faithful, to stay the course, to not lose hope, and to know that change is all around us, and transformation is all around us, and change can be pretty difficult. And so, my friends, in closing, there is hope in the midst of despair. You see, God is the ultimate healer and ruler of our lives, and God listens to our cries. God hears our problems, and God knows our needs, and God understands our pain. God feels our anguish. God cares about our troubles. God works on our behalf, bringing joy where there is death, healing where there is illness, peace where there is violence, reconciliation where there is hatred, the presence of God where we sometimes may feel alone. We may not always get the answers that we want, but we get all of God's love. There is a balm in Gilead. to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sick whole. If you cannot preach like Peter, if you cannot preach like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus and say he died for all.